Hey guys, how are you today? I hope you're all well. It's Economics with Bonang. So now we'll be doing our June paper 2022 from the Eastern Cape, and we'll be doing question 2. So let's get right into it. 2.2.1. Name two kinds of securities found in the money market. So we know that a money market is where short-term and very short-term loans and savings are made. So now we're going to name two kinds of securities, which is treasury bills, reserve bank debentures, short-term government bonds, short-term company debentures, and bankers acceptance. So we're going to choose two to write here. And then 2.1.2, why does the government give transfer payments to communities? So the government give transfer payments to communities to redistribute income, to reduce, which will reduce poverty, and to close the gap between the rich and the poor, and to correct the imbalance of the past and promote equality. 2.2, study the extract below and answer the questions that follow. Keynesian economics. The concept of the multiplier process became important in 1930s when John Maynard Keynes suggested it as a tool to help government in decision making. This demand management approach was designed to help growth and measure the amount needed to reach high levels of national income. Analysts believe that an increase in government spending has a multiplier effect on the economy while uplifting living standards for the poor. Then our questions. 2.2.1, identify an example of an injection above. So here the injection they are talking about the government. So here they say analysts believe that an increase in government spending. So this government spending is our injection, right? And then 2.2.2, name a factor that influences the size of the multiplier. So we know that the MPC and the MPS influences the size of the multiplier, because the bigger the MPC, the bigger the multiplier, and the smaller the MPC, the smaller the multiplier. And then the bigger the MPS, the smaller the multiplier, and the smaller the MPS, the bigger the multiplier, which means our MPC, people are consuming more, people are buying more, which increases our multiplier. And then our MPS, when the MPS increases, it means that people are saving more and they are not buying more, which decreases our multiplier. I hope you understand. And then 2.2.3, briefly describe the term multiplier. Multiplier shows how an increase in spending produces a more than proportional increase in national income. So just like I said, when people spend more, it's like one man's spending is another man's income. So when people spend more, their national income increases, right? And then we have 2.2.4, explain the use of the multiplier by the government. Why does the government use the multiplier? So the government uses the multiplier to determine the total effect of investments, export income, and government spending on the economy, right? And then 2.2.5, what is the negative effect of a low savings rate on economic growth? So a low savings rate can lead to lower rate of economic growth, which means no interest is earned when others borrow from the banks, and less savings may decrease the distribution of income in the country, right? And then we are done with this one. And then we have our question 3, which is also the circular flow. Then 3.1, answer the following questions. 3.1.1, name two flows in an open circular flow economy. So as we know that we only have two flows, as I've explained before. So here we have our real flow and money flow. And then 3.1.2, why is it not possible to exclude individuals from using public goods? This question is part of our public sector, but let's answer it. It is impossible to prevent individuals from enjoying the benefits, because once public goods have been provided, they can be used by everyone. Like a street light, once it is provided, everyone can use it. Nobody can be excluded. Like the roads, when they are built, nobody can be excluded from using the roads, right? And then we have our 3.2, study the information below and answer the questions that follows. So let's study the information. We have our factor market, we have businesses, we have product market, and then we have our costs, income, consumption, revenue, which represents our money flow. So this is the money flow. And then we have our inputs, goods and resources. This shows our real flow, right? So we know that this is a closed economy because there is no foreign sector, right? Let's go to our questions. 3.2.1, identify the participants that owns the factors of production. As we know that households are the owners of the factors of production. So our answer is households. And then 3.2.2, name one public good provided by the state. What does the state provide? The state provides education, health, welfare services, and housing. So here they needed one, so you can choose from the 4, which is education, health, welfare services, and households. And then we have our 3.2.3, briefly describe the term factor market. So a factor market, it is a market where factors of production are bought and sold. And we can say a factor market is a market where households sell their factors of production to the firms, right? And then we have our 3.2.4. What is the effect of national income if injections are less than withdrawals? So if our injections are less than withdrawals, then the national income will decrease or decline. Then 3.2.5, explain the impact of a decrease in taxes on the level of production. Then when taxes decreases, disposable income will rise and expenditure on goods and services will decrease. And the level of production will increase as the multiplier will increase. And then we have our question 4. Then question 4, we have also a question that relates to our circular flow. Then 4.1, answer the following questions. 4.1.1, name 2 types of markets that form part of the financial system. So we know that we have 2 markets that forms part of the financial system, which is the capital market and money market. And then 4.1.2, why is it important to use moving averages to forecast business cycles? So we use moving averages because it removes fluctuations in economic data, which makes it easier to predict business cycles, right? And then 4.2, study the table below and answer the questions that follow. So let's study our table. National account aggregates, South Africa gross domestic product. We have our primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, and then we have our gross value added at basic prices, and then we have our gross domestic product at market prices. So as we read this table, we can see that they are calculating GDP using the production method. So let's go to our questions. 4.2.1, give an example of taxes on products. So taxes on products is VAT or sin tax or excess duties or fuel levy. That is an example of taxes on products. And then name the alternative term used for gross value added in national accounts. So an alternative term used is gross domestic product, right? And then we have our 4.2.3, briefly describe the term secondary sector. So secondary sector, it refers to a sector where goods and services are produced. So secondary sector is where goods and services are manufactured, right? So they are produced from the secondary sector. And then we have our 4.2.4, how are basic prices converted to market prices? So to convert basic prices to market prices, we say GVA at basic price plus taxes on products minus subsidies on products, which leads to our GDP at market prices, right? And then we have our 4.2.5, calculate the value of A. So when you calculate the value of A, we're going to say primary sector plus secondary sector plus tertiary sector, which is going to give us gross value added at basic prices. So we're going to say 324,365 plus 556,708 plus 1,789,431, which is going to give us 2,670,504. Thank you for staying until the end. I hope to see you again in my next video, and please like and subscribe.